Well, Carl's done a great job of outlining the scale and difficulty of the transition that's coming. But unfortunately, our political leaders are blindly ignoring it. They've got other things on their plates, like the rise of right-wing populism. And I think, and actually hope, that we will get past this soon. There's another very unhelpful idea out there, which is this meme that we're in the fourth industrial revolution, the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution. We're at the beginning of something much, much bigger than a subset of the fourth industrial revolution. We're at the beginning of the information revolution. And it's going to have a bigger impact on humans than any of the revolutions that have impacted us in the past. In the distant future, that's not such distant future, we're going to need Stuart and people like Stuart's work to keep us safe from superintelligence and make sure we get the benefits of superintelligence. And in the shorter term, but the medium term, we are going to be facing the economic singularity. Now, anybody leading a tech giant at the moment is in denial about this. They'll say that automation in the past hasn't caused lasting widespread unemployment. Automation creates wealth, wealth creates demand, demand creates new jobs. And that has been true in the past in the long run, although, as Carl pointed out, not in the short run. But one thing we know is that past performance is no guarantee of future outcome. If it was, we wouldn't be able to fly. And we have seen massive widespread unemployment in the past, not in the long run for humans, because the past rounds of automation have mostly been mechanization. And when the machines took our muscle jobs, we had something else to offer. We had our cognitive skills. But it didn't work out so well for the horse, as Carl said. In 1915, there were 21.5 million horses working in America. It turned out 1915 was peak horse, and now there are 2 million horses in America. That is very serious technological unemployment. Thanks to Moore's law, which is evolving, not dying, as some people are saying, in 10 years' time, the machines we have will be 128 times more powerful than the machines we have today. There's no straight line between the processing power of machines and what they can do. There's all sorts of implementation issues, and we need the algorithms to develop and so on. But broadly speaking, they're getting a lot more powerful. In 20 years' time, if Moore's law or something like it continues, they'll be 8,000 times more powerful than they are today, and in 30 years' time, 1 million times more powerful. To me, it's fairly inconceivable that those machines will not take most of the jobs that humans do today. We don't know this for sure, but it seems quite plausible. It isn't going to happen tomorrow. It isn't going to happen in the next 10 years. What is definitely going to happen in the next 10 and 20 years is there's going to be a lot more churn. We have to get a lot better at working out how to reskill ourselves and reskill other people, and to deal with the people who fall by the wayside in that process. Jobs will change, tasks and jobs will change, but also firms will fail as they get disrupted. So there's going to be a lot of churn of jobs. But in the longer term, in the medium term, there is the distinct possibility of massive widespread unemployment. And to deny it, to say that it's not possible, I think is dangerously complacent. So we have to figure out what happens if we have a jobless future. Can we make that a wonderful future? And I think we can. The solution that I think is the right solution is going to sound a bit crazy, but I think it can lead to a really wonderful world, a world in which machines do the jobs. Could be a world in which humans do whatever we want to do. We learn, we explore, we play. It turns out that being comfortably off and retired is really, really good. Being poor and retired sucks, but being comfortably off and retired is really good. So that's where we need to get to. And in fact, I think the people who insist that we will always have jobs, I think they are pessimists. There are, of course, one or two little problems, and the big one is money. How do we get enough money or resources to all the people who no longer have jobs? And a lot of people think that the answer is universal basic income, and I think they're wrong. I know that there's some profound disagreements within the economic singularity group about this. I think a universal payment is a pretty bad idea. I don't think it's a great idea to pay Mark Zuckerberg and his kids a great deal of money. But the real problem with the universal basic income is the little word in the middle of it, basic. It means that at its best, universal basic income makes everybody poor. And we have to do much better than that. We have to make everybody rich. Now, how can we do that? I think the answer is the economy of abundance, also known as the Star Trek economy. And that is when we make the cost of all the goods and services that we need for a very good standard of living, let's say an American middle-class standard of living, we make the cost of all those goods and services nearly free. Not entirely free, because we want to keep the power of the market. The market is a fantastic mechanism for resource allocation. It's the best mechanism we know of. So we want to keep that. Now, this does sound crazy. I'm aware it sounds crazy, and of course people are leaving because it sounds crazy, fair enough. But we have seen some examples of it already happening. When I was young, which is admittedly a very long time ago, it was impossible, even for a rich person, to listen to all the music that they might want to listen to. And now it costs £10 a month. So can we replicate that across the rest of the economy? We can clearly do it with digital goods, weightless, easy to reproduce and so on, but can we do it for physical goods? Can we do it for cars and constructions and clothes? Can we have clothify and constructify and carify? Well, I think yes, we can. And we need to do three things to make that happen. Firstly, we need to take humans out of the production process, and that's what automation does, so that will happen. Secondly, we need to make energy very, very cheap. And this, again, is happening. Some people will tell you that it's already cheaper to use renewables than to dig up dead dinosaurs. It's not really true yet, but it will be true. The cost of solar cells is on an exponentially declining cost curve. Who knows, we might have fission within 30 years or so. Who knows, we may not. Fusion. But certainly, electricity is likely to get so cheap that it's hardly worth metering. And then the third element is AI will make our production processes much, much more efficient. They will enable us to find much cheaper sources of raw materials and to use less of them and less of them. So I think that through cost reduction, it is probably possible to have the economy of abundance. And I think the real threat is panic. I think if we're going to get the economy of abundance, it will probably happen as a natural process of our economic development. But if people perceive that technological unemployment is coming, and they don't believe that abundance is coming, there's likely to be a panic. And it might be that self-driving cars are the canary in the coal mine that cause that panic. When everybody knows 2 or 3 people who have been made redundant because very clever machines are now driving vehicles around, which is something we don't allow humans to do until they're adults, they may start thinking, well, actually, it's not going to be very long before they come for my job, whether they're an accountant or working in a factory or a warehouse. And when we panic, we do a number of things. We might all decide we'd better get our assets liquid, better we'll sell our houses before everybody else sells their houses, and we have the mother of all house crashes around the world. Another thing we do when we panic is we vote for very bad political leaders. Political leaders who tell us that they're going to take us back to a past which was glorious and has been stolen from us by the elite. And of course, they can't do that because the golden past didn't exist and it wasn't stolen. And that can lead to very bad outcomes. Now, about 3 years ago, Stuart Russell was in a conference and he made what may have been a sort of slightly throwaway comment, I'm not sure, that what we ought to do to prepare for this new world is get a bunch of science fiction authors and a bunch of economists and lock them into a room and not let them out until they'd come up with a plan for how to deal with this eventuality. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. I interpreted him to mean that we should set up think tanks. And so I thought we should do that. So Radhika and I decided to set up a think tank, and we called it the Economic Singularity Club, and to my great pleasure, Stuart agreed to join it. And we've given ourselves the task of trying to persuade more people to take seriously the possibility of technological unemployment in a generation or so. We don't know it's going to happen, and if it's going to happen, we don't know when it's going to happen, but we think it's possible, and we think we should be taking it seriously. So we're trying to recruit people to join the movement, the broad movement of people who take this idea seriously, because if we make the transition to the economic singularity successfully, we can have a really wonderful world, a world which could be wonderful almost beyond our imagination. If we don't, not so much. So let's take it seriously and get wonderful. Thank you.